One of the great endeavors of archaeology is figuring out which events described in the Bible actually happened. We know Jesus lived, had a lot of followers, and that he was crucified. That is all historical fact. It's what happened after he was crucified that depends on your faith. But with the emergence of modern astronomy and evolutionary biology, the book of Genesis hasn't held up as well. But hang on, because researchers in Turkey now claim they found indisputable evidence that the story of Noah's Ark was not a cautionary tale about the consequences of forsaking God, but a verifiable historical event.
When Ron was dying, and he knew he was dying, for a long time he thought God would heal him, but when he finally realized it was a sickness unto death, he told me something that he wanted me to do. And I didn't really understand it because at the time, what he said was, people need to know that I'm the one that made the discoveries, and they need to understand the whole chain of events. And I didn't know exactly what he meant because I thought, who would want to claim some of these things because all he ever received was criticism? But apparently it's something that God had impressed him with, that the only way people would know that God did this was to let them know that Ron did it and let them know the story behind it. Because, as he used to say at his meetings, he said, it's perfectly reasonable for this man to find Mount Sinai, and this man to find Noah's Ark, and this man to find Sodom and Gomorrah. And, he said, that's all possible. But he says, it's not possible for one man to find all of those things. And he knew where everything was within a period of 3 years. And that's totally impossible, absolutely impossible. Ron was just an average person, but the way he was different was he cared about people. He cared about their eternal lives. He only wanted to get people to heaven. That's all. And I lived with him, and I know that's all he cared about. And so the reason he did these things was to give people a reason to believe the Bible is true, that everything in there is true. We've learned from his discoveries, we've learned that minute details that nobody would even think about are proven true to the minutest degree in the biblical account. So it's very important that people know the real story.
I believe that we are living in the last generation on planet Earth as it is today. And I believe that God is getting everyone's attention so that no one will be lost without having had an opportunity to see the truth and accept it and to make the necessary changes. I believe that I was the only one that volunteered at the time when God was ready to reveal all these things. And like my critics say, it's impossible for one person to find all these things. And that's true. But all things are possible through God. And he simply revealed all of these things in a manner where no one should be misled as to who has revealed this. I'm not clever enough to have found all these places and objects. So this is something that God has taken into his own hands and is doing a show and tell presentation of his treasures, his archaeological treasures, in a manner that is designed to strengthen the faith of the believers and to convince those who have seen no good reason to believe what Christians have to say, to convince them that the Bible is historically accurate and divinely inspired. The Bible makes a statement that there was a time of ignorance that God winked at, but now he calls all men to repentance. I believe that those who pass through the grave are not required to know as much as those of us who will be alive at the coming of the Lord. And so God has reserved all of these for this special occasion, special time. Now, people are pack rats, and if the whereabouts of these events were known from years past, there would probably be nothing left there that would prove what had taken place, because it would have all been carried off, sold as antiques or amulets, some sort of magical material, and or had big church buildings built over it, or mosques or something. So I believe that God hid all of these things from human knowledge until He was ready to show it. And I believe that you and I must have a perfect relationship with God so that we can survive the coming of the Lord, because all sinners will not survive that experience.